Hello friends, let us do the essay of Great Place written by Francis Bacon, the greatest essayist that English literature has ever seen. Now this essay talks about, as the title says, of Great Place. Now what is this great place? He says great place is actually a seat of power, a place of importance. So when you are the head in your office, head of the family, or usually it's a public office, not exactly the family, or when you are head of institution, or the principal, or the superintendent of an office, all that, the prime minister, or any important place. So that is what he means by of great place. And he tells us about all the aspects of occupying this great place. He tells us about the limitations or the restraints that a man faces when he has to occupy a great place. He gives us tips about the things that we should know when we are in a position of importance, and he gives advice as to how a person occupying a great place should conduct his affairs. Now we know that Bacon is a worldly wise man, and almost everything that he says still rings true. He lived in the Elizabethan times, and he speaks about princes and dukes and courtiers. Though that has changed, we still have everything else. Though we don't call the system of kingship has changed, but we do have governments and we have leaders, and everything else goes on as it was before, though the times and the names that we call people by have changed. And so even today, when you read the essays of Bacon, you understand that he is so commonsensical, that the things that he said and wrote so many years ago still contain a lot of sense in them. So let us see what he tells us here in this particular essay. This is how it begins. Men in great place are thrice servants, servants of the sovereign or state, servants of fame, and servants of business. Okay, men who occupy great place or important key positions, they are slaves, not just once or twice, but they are thrice slaves. So what are they slaves to? The first one, he says, they are the servants or the slaves of the sovereign or the state. Okay, they are the servants of the person who rules them, the king, that is the sovereign, or the state, the government. They have to obey what the king tells them. And the second one, they are servants of fame, because people who occupy important positions often hunger for fame, and they are always keen to safeguard their reputation. They are vulnerable to public opinion. They don't like it when somebody speaks ill of them. So that is why he says that they are servants to fame, because they are always worried about remaining famous. They are worried about losing their popularity. And then the third one, they are the servants of business. Business here only means the work that they do. That is, they are servants to the job at hand, because they have a lot of official duties to do. A person who occupies an important position, he has to spend a lot of time towards his work, and that means he will be left with no time for himself. Like for instance, now in a school or a college, the principal, of course, is the greatest place or the most important designation you can reach at in a college. But there too, if you are if you are there, you are a servant of business, in the sense that you have to work even on Saturdays. You have to work even during vacations, where all the other teachers can enjoy their vacation sitting at home. The principal, who occupies the greatest place in the college, will have to leave her home every day or his home every day, go to the office and work there. He doesn't have any vacations other than Sundays or second Saturdays in our country. So that is why it is said here that men in great place are servants of business. They are restrained or they are tied down by the demands of their official duties. So now you have understood why Bacon says that men in great place are thrice servants. They are the servants of the sovereign, they are servants of fame, and they are servants of business. So as they have no freedom, neither in their persons, nor in their actions, nor in their time. So as a result of being a servant to all these three, they have no freedom whatsoever. Neither in their persons, they have no personal freedom. They cannot do what they want to. They cannot go where they want to. The family might want to go on a vacation, but the duty might hold him back, or he might not get permission from his superior. So, or something very important must be going on and his presence might be needed there. So they do not have freedom, neither in their persons nor in their actions. And same way, they cannot just do as they please. They have to take the opinion of others. They have to get the permission of the higher ups. And so they don't have the freedom of their persons, nor in their actions, nor in their time. They do not have any leisure time. They cannot come and go as they please. Everything that they do is tied down by certain rules, and there is stipulated work time. And when you are in a very important position, there is no fixed time actually, in the sense that whenever your duty calls you, you are supposed to be there. So the higher you climb in the rungs of superiority in an office, the more restricted you become, especially in the case of your own personal time and your freedom. It is a strange desire to seek power and to lose liberty, or to seek power over others and to lose power over a man's self. So he says, it's a strange thing that people desire to occupy important positions, because what happens due to this desire is that you seek power, but you lose liberty. You gain a lot of power, but then at the same time you lose your freedom. You don't have the freedom, as we said earlier, to move about, to spend your own time, to take your own decisions. But at the same time you are powerful too. So that's why he says it's a strange desire to seek power and to lose liberty, and to seek power over others and to lose power over a man's self. And he says what happens here is you become powerful in the sense that you have the power that can be exercised on another person. When you are the superior, most superior officer there, you can do things to restrict other people's freedom. But then what is very ironic is that you lose power over your own self. You can decide what others will do, but then you cannot decide what you can do. So this is a continuation of the earlier line. There is no freedom, neither in their persons, nor in their actions, nor their times. So that is why he says here, it is a strange desire to seek power and to lose liberty, or to seek power over others, but you lose power over your own self. The rising unto place is laborious, and by pains men come to greater pains. So he says, the rising unto place, to reach a high position, it is not an easy task. It is laborious. You have to put in a lot of hard work, a lot of strenuous effort in order to reach a great place or a high position. And by pains men come to greater pains. So you have to face a lot of challenges and difficulties to reach a place. And then all this for what? Only to have greater difficulties piled over yourself. That's why he says the whole thing is very strange. You work hard, you undergo difficulties, you take up challenges, and finally you reach an important place. And then what? Is life going to be easy from then onwards? No. It's only going to get all the more difficult. That is why he says, and by pains men come to greater pains. And it is sometimes base, and by indignities men come to dignities. And he says that sometimes a man has to subject himself to uh, base things, in the sense. Now the rising unto place, okay, sometimes when he says that it is sometimes base, we have to read it as the rising unto place is sometimes base. Means you have to sometimes in order to reach a particular place, you will have to endure the insult of others, you will be humiliated by others, you will be rebuffed by others, but then if you give up, you are a loser. But you have to tolerate all this kind of base behavior in order to reach a great position. And by indignities men come to dignities, and you have to subject yourself to a lot of indignities, and you have to subject yourself to a lot of indignities to finally come to a dignified position, in the sense that you might have to do things that go against your mind. You may have to bribe people, or you may have to beg somebody for favors, and it is through all this, or you have to give them gifts, and you have to flatter people. So you have to go through a series of indignities in order to reach a high position. So by indignities men come to dignities. The standing is slippery, and the regress is either a downfall or at least an eclipse. So he says, and after all this effort, you reach a great place. Is that a solid and a firm place? No, it is not. It is slippery, in the sense any moment you can lose your power. So that's why he says the standing is slippery. A person can never believe that his position is secure, because there would always be others who are vying for his position, and there might be something or the other that might bring him down. That is why he says the standing is slippery, and the regress is either a downfall or at least an eclipse. So, and the regress is either a downfall. What does he mean by that? He means to say that what are the things that can happen? It is slippery, so either you fall down, complete downfall, where there is no comeback, or at least for a time being you would undergo an eclipse, a phase of eclipse, a dip in your career, a dip in your power. So an eclipse, you know, is a time when you have the eclipse, you know, even the sun can become invisible for some time, though it is temporary. The same thing can happen to people occupying important positions too. When something unfavorable happens, they might either completely lose their power, or they might become unpopular for some time. They might become powerless for some time. So that can always happen, which is a melancholy thing. So he says, and that is a melancholy thing for a person who is in power, who is used to wielding power. Being out of power even for some time is a melancholy thing. It's a sad thing. Powerful people do not like to lose their power, even if it is for a second. And then there is a Latin line which I will not dare to read. Instead, let me tell you what the English meaning is. When you are no longer the man you were, you have no reason for desiring to live. So this is a line, it is a quotation from Cicero, a Latin line. And we know that Francis Bacon is very fond of sprinkling his essays with the Latinisms and quotations from other works. So here this Latin line is taken from Cicero, the Roman statesman, philosopher and scholar. And Cicero has said, when you are no longer the man you were, you have no reason for desiring to live. So a person who is in power would not want to live, would not want to remain alive if he loses his power. That's the meaning there. Okay, and then we're going on to the next sentence. Now, another thing that I think you already know about Bacon's essays is that in Bacon's essays, each sentence has a kind of, one sentence is not exactly connected to the next one, in the sense the common theme in this essay, for instance, is of great place. But then you can see that from sentence to sentence he talks about various facets of the same topic. It's not as if one full paragraph is devoted to one particular topic. He keeps jumping from one idea to another. And so now he is going on to something else. He says, nay, retire men cannot when they would, neither will they, when it were reason, but are impatient of privateness even in age and sickness, which require the shadow, like townsmen that will be sitting at their street door, though thereby they offer to age to scorn. So he says, these people, that is people who hold important positions, whether it is a king or whether it is a minister or whoever, they will not retire. I mean, it's about their retirement or leaving the office. He says, no. They cannot retire when they want to retire. Retire men cannot when they would. Means men cannot retire when they want to, when they would. Neither will they when it were reason. So, when they want to retire, circumstances will not allow them to retire. And when it is the right time to retire, they will not be willing to retire. We have seen in our country, we have so many politicians who, in spite of being old and infirm, they will not let go of their office. They would still want to hold on, to stay back another day, another day. So here that's why he says, people who are used to wielding power, if they cannot retire even if they want to. Suppose a person feels that he doesn't want kingship, he's tired of it, but then he cannot, because you can't leave such a responsible job all of a sudden. You have to find somebody else to take the place after you. You have to, the others have to permit you. So all that is there. And sometimes there also come situations where it is the right time for you to retire because you're unpopular, nobody wants you there, but then you would be so power hungry that you will not go away. So that is another thing that he says about this. Nay, retire men cannot when they would, neither will they when it were reason. The reason here is most sensible, most apt. At such situations, men would not be willing to retire. They are impatient of privateness. Privateness here is retired life, retirement away from the public attention, because they are so used to being in the center of everything. They do not like even the talk of privateness or retirement. And even when they're old and sick, even in age and sickness, which require the shadow, so here, even when they're old and sick, which require the shadow here means shadow means rest or retirement. So even when their body grows old and they are in need of retirement, they will not go. And he gives a comparison. He compares them to old townsmen, people in old towns who every day it is their practice to come and sit outside at the street door, looking at people passing by and passing comments on them, talking to people passing by. So that is a common practice they have. So even when they are very old, they will refuse to remain indoors. Instead, they would come and sit right there in the front, and they would become the laughing stock of all the others, because the others would say that, look at the old man, instead of lying down inside, he's still sitting there. And so that is what will happen to these power hungry men who refuse to retire when the right time comes. Certainly great persons had need to borrow other men's opinions to think themselves happy. For if they judge by their own feeling, they cannot find it. But if they think with themselves what other men think of them, and that other men would fain be as they are, then they are happy, as it were, by report, when perhaps they find the contrary within. So then he next goes on to another aspect of this thing. He says that it's very difficult for men in power to be happy, because they always need to borrow other men's opinions. Means they to feel happy, they have to hear good words about them from others. Now, how do you feel, or when do you feel happy? When different people have different reasons for feeling happy. For some people, simple things make them happy. Like, for instance, a smile of a child, or the sight of a beautiful flower, something tasty that is given to you to eat. Anything would make you happy. But some people will be happy at none of these things. And where does happiness come from? Happiness, I believe, is something that should well up from within us. You cannot get happiness from external things. in the sense that uh, if I have to be happy when I see a smiling child, I have to have happiness inside me. If I am a grumpy person, no matter how much a child smiles at me, I will not feel happy. So here, people, these great persons, they, in order to be happy, have to know what others feel about them. That's why he says here, they need to borrow other men's opinions. Means they need to hear favorable comments and praises from others. Only then they can be happy. For if they judge by their own feeling, they cannot find it. So if they try to feel happy based on their own opinions, they will never be happy. But if they think with themselves what other men think of them, and that other men would fain be as they are, then they are happy. So if other men tell them that you are very lucky, and would fain here means gladly be. So if somebody tells them, oh, I wish I were in your position, I envy you, you are so lucky to be in this position. When people praise him, or when he knows that others are jealous of him because they envy his position, if he gets such information, if such things are reported to him, he feels very happy. They are happy to know that others are envious of them and that they would like to be in their position. But they are happy as it were by report. But only if they get such reports, they are happy. When perhaps they find the contrary with it. So in their minds, they may not be happy, but when somebody tells them that we are jealous of you, and or when he hears a report that somebody else wants to be in this man's position, they are envious of him, that makes him very pleased of himself. So how unfortunate it is, because you are not even in control of your happiness when you are in a place of power. For they are the first that find their own griefs, though they be the last that find their own faults. For they are the first that find their own griefs means these people are the first to detect their own difficulties or miseries or sorrows, but they are the last to find their faults. They'll never find their own faults. If somebody hurts them, if somebody creates difficulties for them, they would be the first one to notice. But then if they are creating trouble for others, if they have some fault, they will never acknowledge it. So they are first to find fault with others, but they are the last to find fault with themselves. Certainly men in great fortunes are strangers to themselves, and while they are in the bustle of business, they have no time to tend their health either of body or mind. So he says that men in great fortunes, they are strangers to themselves. We already saw that earlier. He doesn't have time to spend for himself. He cannot take his own decisions. He doesn't even know where his happiness lies. And so that is why great men are strangers to themselves, and while they are in the puzzle of business, while they are entangled in the complexities of their work, the official work, they have no time to look after their health, either of the body or their mind. And there is now a line taken from the Roman writer Seneca. Death is grievous to the man who dies well known to all but unknown to himself. So it's a very apt quotation that Bacon brings in there. Bacon says that he quotes Seneca, who said that death is grievous to the man who dies well known to all but unknown to himself. It's a very unfortunate thing when a man is known to everybody else but he doesn't know himself. So that would be the case of most of these great and famous people. Everybody knows them, but they don't know what they themselves are. They never had the time to find out what they enjoyed doing. They never had the leisure to engage in activities that they truly enjoyed. They were always busy in their work, and finally at the time of death they realize that they don't know themselves. In place there is license to do good and evil, whereof the latter is a curse. For an evil the best condition is not to will, the second not to can. But power to do good is the true and lawful end of aspiring. So he says, When you are in place means when you are in great place, when you have power in your hands, you have the license to do good and the license to do evil. Nobody might question you. Whereof the latter is a curse, the second one, that is the license to do evil, is a curse. It's a bad thing because it can create trouble for many people. For in evil, and in such cases, the best condition is not to will. So the best thing is for a person who is in great place not to even think of doing evil. That is what he means by is not to will. Let the person not even entertain the idea of doing something bad. The second, not to can, means not to be able to. So even if he thinks of doing evil, let him not be able to do it. So that is what he says about this. For an evil, the best condition is not to will, because if a person in power decides to do bad things, that would be a horrible thing. So the best thing would be for him to not at all think about doing evil, and even if one thinks of it, let him not be able to do it. But on the other hand, the power to do good is the true and lawful end of aspiring. So it is the greatest good for a powerful person, for a leader, to desire to do good things. That is why he says here, but power to do good is the true and lawful end of aspiring. For good thoughts, though God accept them, yet towards men are little better than good dreams, except they be put in act, and that cannot be without power and place, as the vantage and commanding ground. So he says, good thoughts are good in themselves. God would be happy with a man who has good thoughts. That's why he says, good thoughts, though God accept them, yet towards men are little better than good dreams. So a good thought is a good thing in itself. But what is the use of a good thought? Like you sit in a place and think that I want to help everybody. I want to build something. These are all good thoughts. I want to build a bridge for the people. I want to build a hospital for somebody. I want to help somebody who is weak in his studies. All that is good. It's a good thought. But then a good thought is only as good as a good dream. But they would really be useful for man only when they are put into action. You have to act on them. Only then a thought would benefit others. Otherwise, it would remain as a thought in your mind. What's the good in a good idea remaining in your mind? You have to do something, work it out for others to benefit from it. And to do that, what do we need? We need power and place. Now, when you listen to interviews of maybe IAS officers and such things, when you ask young IAS aspirants, why did you choose civil service? I have often heard them saying that, I would like to help people. I would like to help the poor farmers. Like the people in my father is a farmer, and if I become a farmer, I can only be one among them. But then if I am an officer, a collector for instance, or an IAS officer, I can do so much good. I can influence decisions. I can do actions that are in their favor. So like that, a good thought becomes beneficial only when it is converted into an action. So to do good actions, you have to have power and place. And that cannot be without power and place, as the vantage and the commanding ground. Vantage is a place from where you can get a good view, the best view of all the low-lying areas. So here what he means to say is just this, that if you want to do good to others, the best place to be is to be in a great place, a place where you have the authority to do things. Then, merit and good works is the end of man's motion, and conscience of the same is the accomplishment of man's rest. For if a man can be partaker in God's theatre, he shall likewise be partaker of God's rest. Okay, so he says, merit and good works should be the end of man's motions. Motion here means actions. every man should aim at doing good things, merit and good works. So every man should aim at doing good things, doing helpful things to others. And if a man is here, conscience means consciousness or the awareness of. If a man is aware that he is doing all good things, he can also he can rest, or he can be peaceful, because it is your actions that determine your peace. If you know that you are of no use to others, at some point of time it will make you feel guilty and it will take away your peace and your serenity. Whereas if you know that you have used your power to do all good, all possible good things for others, that will give you immense peace of mind and contentment. That is what is meant here by man's rest. So a man in place who uses his power, who wields his power for good things, for the benefit of others, will be peaceful at heart. He would be content at heart. For if a man can be partaker of God's theatre, he shall be likewise a partaker of God's rest. So here the reference is to the Bible. Here we know that God was indulged in the activity. Here we know that God engaged himself in the act of creation for 6 days, and for 6 days he worked real hard, and then what did he do on the 7th day? He took rest. Same way, if a man, while he is working, while he is in power, if he uses all his powers for good things, just like God used 6 days for his creation, then he too, like God, can rest peacefully for the rest of his life. He can take comfort in the fact that he has done good, and that will give him a lot of mental peace. And then again we have a Latin line, which is actually a line from the Bible, that says, and God turned to behold the works which his hands had made, and saw they were all very good. And then the Sabbath. Okay, that's how it goes. So God turned, after his 6 days of hard work of creation, God turned and looked at everything that he created, and he felt these are all works of his hands. And then he looked at each one of them, all that he had created. He looked at each one of his creations, and he was very happy. He saw that they were all good. And then he decided, okay, so now since I've done the work well, let me take a rest. And then came the Sabbath. Okay, so this is connected to the earlier sentence. So while you are in authority, if you do your work well, you can spend the rest of your days or your retirement in contentment. So that is the idea there.